It's funny sometimes how things seem to line up. Things happen all at once, all at the same time, leading to a specific outcome. And that is exactly what just happened to me recently and led to me being able to buy and own the Nodus Sector Field Watch. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I'm talking about watches. And it is funny how some things seem to line up for you. It's like the stars in the sky seem to align and it all ends up in a purchase of a watch. And that is what has happened to me recently. A few weeks ago, I was starting to reduce the size of my collection. There are a number of watches in there that I love, but I've got to the point where I was happy to sell them. So I've been selling some watches and building up some money in my sort of watch budget. So I'm available to buy watches in the future if I wanted to. At that same sort of time, there seemed to be a lot of YouTube videos coming onto my feed about Nodus watches. So I was watching these watch videos, seeing this new brand that I hadn't experienced before, and I was thinking, wow, they're really nice looking watches. And as I was watching these different reviews, I seemed to really focus in on one particular watch, and that is the Sector Field Watch, especially in this blue color. And I was thinking, wow, that's a really good looking watch. And then suddenly on Facebook Marketplace, there was this watch. There was this watch at an amazing price, in amazing condition, and I just had to buy it. I had money sitting there from the sale of other watches. I've been watching all these reviews, seeing these positive reviews about these watches, and this was the specific one that interested me. So today, in a first impressions style video, I'm going to check out my new Sector Field Watch from Nodus. So when this Nodus Sector Field, the Marina variation, turned up, there were 4 things that stood out to me. And the first one was actually the packaging. Now, I try not to talk about packaging too much because it's not that interesting, but look how cool this one is. There's 2 little drawers. You pull out the bottom drawer. We've got a card there to show that the movement has been regulated to 5 positions, or 4 positions, sorry. Got a little user manual, got a cleaning cloth. And then in the top drawer, we've got the watch itself and a spare strap. And that's really cool, something a little bit different. Yes, it's going to go straight down into my watch box drawer, but hey, something different, something nice. And the second thing that stood out to me, and it really stood out to me, is this dial. The dial on this watch is probably one of my favorite dials I've ever seen on any watch, partly because of just the general looks, partly because of the color chosen, this sort of blue and that sort of fading blue, partly because of the 3D aspect to it. You'll see that chapter ring is sort of another layer on top, and that inner disc is another layer on top as well. And then there's cutaways as well. You'll see the cutaways around the edges, as well as the sector part of the dial there are all cutaways, and it gives you some real sort of levels and some 3D effect to the watch, and it looks fantastic. And then on top of that, these lovely long hands and that blue second hand, that makes such a difference. Together as a package, honestly, in the top 5 favorite dials of any watch I've ever experienced. The third thing that stood out to me was, unfortunately, the lugs. They look good. They're really nice design. I love how there's a bit of a downturn on the inside towards that bracelet, towards that end link, but they're very long. And in fact, they're probably just a little bit too long. It still ends up wearing nice on wrist, but I have to admit, when I look down, I keep thinking, I wish they were a little bit shorter. They are quite long. It does mean that the overall sort of dimensions of this watch does feel a little bigger on your wrist, even though it's a relatively small dimension watch. I think this is a 38 or a 39. So it gives you a little bit more wrist presence, which is good. But I just keep thinking that they're just a touch long. I just wish they brought them down 1 or 2 millimeters on each side. I think it would then feel a little bit nicer on wrist. Not to say it doesn't feel nice. It's just something that has stood out to me. And the last thing that stood out to me is this bead blasting finishing that's on the bracelet, on the clasp, on the case, bit of high polish there. And what stood out to me about it was, initially I sort of thought, oh, that's a bit of a shame. I would have preferred brushed with a little bit of polished. However, I've changed my mind. I've changed my mind fairly quickly, because this sort of bead plastered sort of look gives it a bit of like a muted grey look, almost a titanium sort of style look. And although that's not normally my favourite, in conjunction with that dial, the colour of the dial, the look of the dial, that colour, that look, that feel, that dial, it just works so well in conjunction with each other that I now think it is actually a feature that is really, really nice. But those things aside, I think it's just a great looking watch. Has a slightly larger crown there, which is also signed, which is really nice. I think it works well with this sort of design. Also nice and easy to sort of access. This one being a no date variant, it has a NH38 movement, which is nice. So hacking, hand winding, but also no ghost position. So that's a really nice decision by Nodus. I'm really happy when they do things like that, when microbrands sort of choose to go that extra sort of mile. Having that sort of nice long chamfered edge really gives it something extra. Really nice clasp with that polished chamfer edge as well. A couple of sets of micro adjusts there, 3 to be exact, and an all milled interior. Now I've seen this clasp used on quite a number of watches, and I'm so glad they chose to use this one because it's actually probably one of my favorites. It's a really nice clasp. On the back there, you've got a really nice sort of intersection of 4 circles, which gives you a really cool effect, as well as some information about the brand and this particular watch. The watch also comes with a spare strap, and it's this blue sort of sailcloth, and it's really nice, feels nice, well made. Bit of black sort of leather underneath, so it's sort of comfort on wrist. Quick release spring bars, nice hardware that is signed with Nodus, has that nice thick tang there which looks really good, really feels good as well. And you'll see that colour combination with the dark blue and the blue does look really cool. And then on wrist it feels and looks really nice, but as you may see, I'm not sure if you'll see or if come across on the camera, it just does feel a touch long there. It doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel like it's overhanging or anything like that. I think on my 6 3/4 around about 17 centimeter wrist, it fits nicely, but I just keep looking down and thinking, if that was tucked in just a touch, I would like it a little bit more. It will go from being a really nice watch to being a really, really nice watch. So no complaints, just pointing it out. Sits down on wrist nicely enough, does sit up a little bit, but what really stands out to me is that dial and those hands. This is one of the better looking watches I've ever seen. I really, really like the choices that they've made here. And if you like this sort of video, this first impressions of microbrands, maybe check out these 2 videos next.